hush hush thing that people didn't really talk about back then. And so her suffering from her own PTSD, and then putting her in this situation on this like commune, more or less, of these people that have all had their own wounds themselves. I thought it could be a very volatile situation when someone from the outside kind of interrupts their peaceful existence.
Yeah, I mean, you had a great cast. I mean, not just Ashley, but just the cast in general. Getting William Sadler in the movie as well, a very, very famed actor as well. What was it like for you to work with these talented actors? Did you get a lot from learning from them, and were you kind of surprised at some of the performances in the movie?
Yeah, it was a joy. I mean, it was a joy to work with such professional people. Blanche and William Sadler, Blanche Baker, they're as professional as it gets because they're veterans. They've been doing it for so long. It's just, you don't have to worry about what they're going to give you because you know it's going to be good. And yeah, I mean, I learned so much watching them perform, and it was great. It was a treat. It was a film school 101 lesson for me in a lot of ways. And also just hearing William Sadler tell stories about Die Hard 2 and Shawshank Redemption didn't hurt either.
Yeah, I mean, he had a really storied career and all there as well. And I think you cast him almost perfectly in this movie as well. Yeah, and I kind of sad that we didn't see necessarily a scene with him and Ashley together. Although I'm not gonna ruin it for the audience, but there is a couple scenes in which they interact. I think I think that they play off each other very well, and I think William did a very good job of that as well. I think one thing also I talked to Ashley is the music. The couple of musical interludes that happened during the film, I think were really great as well. I mean, tell me a little bit about the music and performing those musical numbers in the movie.
Yeah, it was fun. They that was part of the reason why I cast them, was because they could perform like that. And I didn't want professional musicians because that's not what they are. They're farmers that can play. So it wasn't about like how good their singing is. It was just about bringing an energy. And that song it's a standard of music, and it's very a Southern song, and I've always just loved it personally. But it fit with the themes of what we were kind of doing too, kind of playing into the it's not like a religious movie, but like the religious themes kind of undercurrent, of like, is this house kind of a purgatory place where everyone's, where they can hide away from their guilt and their PTSD and their trauma and whatever. And then everything on the outside is death and grief and trauma and all those things. And so the song in that sense kind of fit the mood that we were going for. And, when we were filming, like we'd be off filming one scene and then we'd come back in and they would be, in the other room playing the guitar, just learning the song. And it was just like, it was so fun just listening to them play and practice it. And then when we actually filmed it, that was like one of the most joyous experiences I had on the film was filming that scene.
Yeah, and just to think, we go back to that idea of trauma and the fact that, I think I think one of the thoughts going through watching the movie was that this house was kind of purgatory because they a lot of the people in the house were suffering from basically sins. They all had a sin of their own. I'm not going to ruin the story for you, but each of them had carried their own sins, and they're kind of waiting to see, if they are either going to be redeemed or if they were going to go to hell. So, I was I kind of like that idea that idea. I mean, it was just so, I think, and this is credit to you. I think the writing was brilliant on this, and the way that, and the characters themselves, I think, were really decent, especially Alice. I think, and I was telling Ashley this, I mean, it's a breakout performance for her. I think that, it's a, I guess, not to put it lightly, an acting tour de force on her part. I kind of hope that she gets, she gets recognition for this because she did a really good job on it.
Yeah,
But yeah, I think it's absolutely great in film, and I highly encourage anyone to watch it. Tell me a little bit about that farmhouse. I mean, it was, were you familiar with it? Scouting that location. I mean, it was very set very, very beautifully. It was in a very beautiful location. Tell me a little bit about that.
So it was actually two farmhouses that we filmed at that we made seem like one. My family background kind of is not me per se, but it's my family is like farmers, and I was kind of the first generation that wasn't a farmer. But those houses, even though the farms aren't there anymore, the houses are still there, a lot of them. And so we had family members out in Western Mass that still had a farmhouse. It's not the outside. So the outside was a farm that we actually found. I actually just found it on Airbnb, and I looked up like old farmhouses and found this beautiful looking one in, and I forgot the name of the town, but it's in Western Massachusetts. And I talked to her, and she very graciously decided to let us film there. And then, that was all the outdoor stuff and like the living room and a few other rooms. And then we went and filmed at my family's farm in the kitchen area and some of the bedrooms upstairs. So it was amazing that it all came together to look like one place, but it took a lot of a lot of prep work and editing to make it seem like that.
Yeah, and it must have been great to have the access to those locations, and more importantly, you didn't have a lot of different locations to shoot at, so it was probably a little bit easier for you to shoot as well.
Yes and no, because it was, like I was saying before, it was out in the middle of nowhere. So there was no cell service at all. And that was, that was tough for everyone. And because it is 3 hours away from Boston, 4 or 5 hours away from New York, everyone had to be on location at all times. There was no going home at the end of the night. They had to stay in hotels and crew houses. So yes, it was good in a sense that we didn't have a lot of location changes, but it made scheduling tough because everyone was being put up for the duration of filming, which is tough for anyone. So
now, you set this right in the 50s. I mean, why the decision to do that era?
Well, I wanted to do like a post World War II movie. If these people, like, it couldn't have been too far after World War II, otherwise the characters would be too old at that point. So, and I wanted to do it before like TV, was introduced and the new style of cars came about in like 1955, 1956, with the fins on the back. So yeah, it was kind of just like that perfect spot, late 40s, early 50s that the movie I felt should take place in terms of the vehicles, in terms of the isolation, no TVs, none of that. And it was just, as simple as that.
And how did you get the vehicle, the main vehicle in the movie? Everybody will recognize once they see it. How did you get a hold of that?
Yeah, that was in the family. I found someone in the family that had the car as like a kind of a show car that they use for weddings because people just love taking pictures with old cars, and so that's how we got that. And yeah, I mean that was another reason to have the movie set where it was, is because I did have access to some of those vehicles, and I knew I wouldn't have to pay, a crazy amount for them, which you would normally have to do for those kind of cars for a film.
Going through the edits and going through, I talked a little to Ashley about this, just going through the edits, and she said she saw some of the edits because she was doing voiceover work during the sessions. And how was it for you for editing? I mean, this is roughly not 80, 90 minutes. Really, like I said, a really good story in 80, 90 minutes. Tell me a little bit about the pacing and the editing portion of it.
Yeah, it was a challenge. I mean, I edited the movie when we finished filming the farming stuff, we had all of like Ashley's stuff and basically most of the film. And then we took a year break to raise additional funds, and then we did the William Sadler stuff. And that was filmed at a mansion in Ipswich, which is very far away from Western Mass. So that was just like its own different thing. And in that time, I was editing the movie myself. I was probably too close to it, really. So, I had ideas of where I wanted it to go. But then when we got William Sadler stuff in the can, I brought on a professional editor to really tie it all together, more or less. And, we decided to go for more of like an elliptical kind of storytelling, just to essentially, really build up that dreamy aspect of the film. And the movie is very much about memories and past trauma. So we thought it'd be interesting to kind of play with the flashbacks in that way, of especially someone like the character of Alice, like she's always in her own head, and she's trying her hardest not to think about these things, but she can't help it because every little thing kind of reminds her of her son or her husband or what have you. And so we wanted to kind of build that out in the editing.
Yeah, and there's that relationship between her and her uncle and I didn't ask Ashley about this, but there's that tension between the two of them. Yeah. That's there as well. I mean, it's again, I don't want to give too much away, but it just seems like, she almost was almost cursed almost when she was little, when she observed her, basically. And like I said, I'm not gonna run the story for it, but tell me about that relationship between the uncle and Alice.
I think Alice is a misunderstood character, by everyone's making different judgments about her, whether it's William Sadler or Bishop or her husband or her son. They all have their own ideas of who she is, but no one really knows who she is. And people project things onto her, So when he is telling that story, was it really malicious what Alice was doing? Or was she afraid and couldn't react to the situation, like a grown-up might? And so it was kind of playing with that, like a perception of a person that no one truly knows, but everyone thinks they have an idea of who she really is.
Yeah, again, what makes her a really complex character. And, I say we don't see that too often in a female role, and that's what makes this movie and her performance in particular is really, really great as well. So, I was enthralled with it all the way straight through the movie and that character. So I highly recommend anybody, like I said, go and watch it on VOD. How was the kind of the thing on the set? I know Ashley said that sometimes she would just go off in her little corner and listen to music and kind of would be away from everybody else. But with the rest of the cast, how was it on set? What kind of mood was there on set?
Very, very communal. Everyone was, because everyone was staying together, more or less, some people had their hotel rooms, but a lot of people stayed at the crew house. And so it created a bonding experience, Yeah, it was very interesting. Again, it was my first feature film, so you don't realize how close everyone gets in the 3 weeks that they're filming. So, and I think a lot of people on the movie are still friends to this day. A lot of the actors, because of just those 3 weeks being out there, having fires after filming, playing music, just kind of almost living back in time, like living back in that time period for a little while. So it was really interesting in that sense.
Tell me a little bit about the cinematography and how you envisioned it and how it came out in that process.
David Boulay is the cinematographer. He did an amazing job. He's filmed all my short films too. So we just work together really well. We trust each other. I let him do his thing for the most part, but we storyboard it out. We both get there knowing exactly what we want to do together. And we're both on the same page. There's very little arguments about not understanding an idea or him thinking it should be differently. Because the same way, like I work with Ashley, like we've taken care of all that stuff before we even got to set. So we didn't have to worry about it. We knew exactly what we wanted to do. And, those locations kind of, in a lot of ways, they film themselves, right? Like they're so beautiful, and we, like the first image that I had of the movie was the character of Holden standing at the top of the field, just like watching the characters. And you know, like in a normal thriller, he'd be like kind of stalking them, and like you wouldn't know where he is at all times. But like